situation, it caused, it just kind of threw everything out of the normal schedule of a day. And so, but he still wanted to have that opportunity to vote, but of course, we all know what the lines were like on that day. He doesn't have any of the other reasons for which he would be able to vote on Election Day, or excuses for not going to the polls on Election Day. And this bill just simply says that a person would be able to go in person to vote. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and members of the committee, this is just simply saying that for absentee voting, being able to vote in person without having to give an excuse to do so, simply to help with the process of voting on election days. We know of recent elections where burden on our voters sometimes happens to be the length of the lines, the way the weather is, et cetera, et cetera. And we could be in a situation where we'd be able to process those who have voted absentee in a more, I guess, efficient manner, as opposed to having them out on Election Day.
Madam Chairman, members, Carol Nagle with the League of Women Voters, and we feel that all voters should have equal access to the ballot before or on Election Day. They should not have to provide personal, unrelated information to cast a ballot. Voters have found it very confusing about their eligibility to vote before Election Day. Voting absentee in person is as secure as voting on Election Day. Local election officials, as you have heard, have had success in reducing long lines on Election Day by encouraging absentee voting. For voting absentee in person, eliminating the cumbersome process of completing the absentee application would save time as well as the expense of printing the form. The time to complete the application adds considerably to the process of voting. Providing supporting information for any current excuse adds more time to the process. Extra personnel are needed to explain the form to the voter and check it for completion before a voter can proceed to checking in. Eliminating the use of the application form would speed the voting process considerably. And the check-in process on an absentee in-person voting day would be efficient and fast, just as on Election Day. Rather than changing the excuse list bit by bit, year by year, make 2017 the no excuse year. Thank you.
Dave Berkey, General Registrar for the City of Falls Church. Once again, we did have the highest turnout of absentee voting in the last election in our city at 25%. So effectively, we have reached that point. There is a threshold amongst the counties and cities of the Commonwealth in which once you hit that threshold of voters who vote before Election Day, it is a cost savings and a time savings. Until you hit that threshold, it is not. So I would like you to consider that, and we at the City of Falls Church very much would like to see this happen. Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Hello again, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I know time is short. And I haven't done a side-by-side, Ms. Lamb may have. My bill, I think, is either identical or darn close to Delegate Carr's, which you dealt with earlier. So if I could just have, I'll say my piece and then accept my fate. How's that? Am I right on that, Meg?
Madam Chair, Delegate Carr's bill is no excuse in-person absentee voting 21 days prior, and this is an early voting bill, but they are
They would have
nearly-
they would have the
nearly
same
identical.
effect.
The same effect.
1631 would have the effect of having early voting starting 21 days before the election.
Just different names.
Different names, same result. Early in-person absentee's been with us for quite a while, Madam Chair, and it has been, from any perspective, remarkably successful. I would suggest to you from sort of a market perspective, it's been successful. There is clearly a demand from the citizens of the Commonwealth for early voting without excuse. The numbers of voting under the excuse list are consistently up year after year. Whether it's long lines or ability not to miss work on a Tuesday because, for whatever reason, including hourly wage workers who can't wait in line for 4 hours, voters who have been able to fit within the excuse list are clearly using this more and more. And what 1631 does is fully open the process finally to anyone to vote early starting 21 days before the election. Campaigns have clearly adapted to the fact that across the country, most polls, most elections begin with early voting before actual election day. 37 states now do this. The presidential campaign we just went through, both campaigns bragged about their effectiveness in getting out early vote and using that and getting people to the polls early, which of course has the effect of clearing lines up on election day itself. So I would suggest to you that most of our sister states have recognized that the efficiency of this as a way of conducting an election outweighs any concerns about it. And most importantly, members of the committee, this is important for our democracy because it clearly will increase voter participation, which it seems to me, regardless of which side of the aisle you might happen to sit on, we all want more and more of our citizens to participate as often and as easily as possible. So this accomplishes that. And as I said, we would join, I think the number at last count was 37 states and the District of Columbia in allowing this. I'm happy to answer any questions.
This bill adds two excuses, two reasons to vote absentee. One, I consider a technical change on the individual versus family. I'm trying to find my, what number is it?
House Bill 2180.
Okay.
Line 35 and
Yeah,
line
it
27.
right. If you're taking care of a child, that they add the child in there, and that's one addition. And then I think the technical change is using individual for family member. And the second reason is someone who lacks reliable personal transportation, particularly, and I guess that would help in rural areas where there might be a long distance to a polling place. I think it'd be useful there. We have people who just can't make it to the polls, and this would be because of transportation issues, and this would add that reason to the list. So it's pretty straightforward. Two new reasons that are, in my view, highly justified. Well, the transportation part is new. And the addition of a child, specifically mentioning a child, someone who's primary and personally responsible for the care of a child, is new as well.
So. If I may, Meg, when you strike family member on line 35, you just say anyone who's taking care of a child or an individual who is confined at home. So really, you open it up completely. If I'm reading that properly.
Yes, sir. Many parents have to go to work, Mr. Chairman.
No. My point is, if you strike family member, it's no longer a family member requirement.
Right.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I was clear on that.
Madam Chair, that is correct. It's a person who's primarily and personally responsible for a child or another individual, so there is no family requirement for the child.
Have a motion? Yeah.
We have a motion to PBI House Bill 2180. We have a second. All those in favor of PBI House Bill 2180, please respond by saying aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
All right, this concludes.
Madam Chair, if I-
Yes.
I'm not sure we did House Bill 2091. Is that on here? Isn't that early?
Is Delegate Corey here? Okay, thank you.
But isn't it pretty much the same
It
as
is.
Sullivan's?
It is identical to Delegate Sullivan. Happy to talk with her about it if we.
Well, may or may not be able to take it up. You know, we may end up running out of time because this subcommittee has a lot more bills that they have to deal with. So if we don't hear it today, we can't make any promises of whether it'll be heard.
Thank you all for attending. We appreciate your participation.